After my rich aunt passed away, my cousins told me I wasn't family enough to attend the will reading. I simply smiled and said, let's see how the story unfolds. The surprise waiting for them was astounding. The first time I truly felt like an outsider in my own family wasn't at a celebration or holiday gathering. It was at my beloved Aunt Lillian's funeral. Standing alone beneath the massive oak tree that shadowed her casket, I watched my cousins huddle together, their designer black dresses and suits a stark contrast to my simple thrift store ensemble. My name is Callie, and I've spent 31 years trying to belong in a family that treats wealth like oxygen, essential for survival. The irony? Aunt Lillian was the only one who ever made me feel like I belonged. Look who decided to show up. Camilla's voice cut through the somber atmosphere as she approached, Quinn and Derek trailing behind her like perfectly trained show dogs. I'm surprised you could take time away from your little charity project. I straightened my spine, forcing a polite smile. It's a women's shelter, Camilla, and Aunt Lillian volunteered there too. Please, Derek scoffed, adjusting his Italian silk tie. Aunt Lillian would never step foot in such a place. She had standards. The memory of Aunt Lillian quietly sorting donations and counseling abuse survivors flashed through my mind, but I kept it to myself. She'd always asked me to keep her volunteer work private, away from her judgmental children. The lawyer's waiting, Quinn announced, checking her phone. We should head to the reading. I took a step forward, but Camilla's manicured hand shot out, stopping me. Oh, honey, didn't anyone tell you? The reading is for immediate family only. I am immediate family, I protested, heat rising to my cheeks. Aunt Lillian was my mother's sister. Yes, but we all know how Aunt Lillian felt about your branch of the family tree. Derek smirked. Always the black sheep, weren't you? Quinn at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. It's just the lawyer was very specific about who should attend. We wouldn't want to waste anyone's time, Camilla added, her smile sharp as a knife. I mean, what could Aunt Lillian possibly leave to someone who spends their days serving soup to homeless people? I watched them walk away, their expensive shoes clicking against the cemetery path. An elderly woman who'd been standing nearby approached me, her kind eyes filled with concern. I couldn't help but overhear, she said softly. I'm Margaret. I worked with Lillian at the country club. Nice to meet you, I managed, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Your aunt spoke about you often, Margaret continued, surprising me. She was so proud of your work at the shelter, said you were the only one who understood what really mattered in life. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Chelsea, the shelter's director. Need you at the center ASAP. Important news about Lillian. I glanced at my cousin's retreating backs, then back at my phone. Something in my gut told me this was important. Thank you, Margaret, I said, squeezing her hand. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that today. As I walked to my car, a reliable but ancient Honda Civic that stuck out like a sore thumb among the luxury vehicles, I heard Camilla's laugh echo across the cemetery. 10 years ago, that sound would have made me shrink into myself. Today, it just made me sad. You know what's funny? I heard Derek say to his sisters, she actually thought she'd be included in the will reading, as if Aunt Lillian would leave anything to someone who couldn't even afford a proper funeral outfit. I slid into my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The last time I'd seen Aunt Lillian, just days before she passed, she'd held my hand and whispered, "Patience, dear one. Everything will make sense soon." Starting my car, I took one last look at the cemetery. My cousins had disappeared into their chauffeured car, probably heading to the lawyer's office to divide up what they saw as their rightful inheritance. They had no idea that Aunt Lillian had visited the shelter every Tuesday for the past 5 years, working quietly alongside me to help women rebuild their lives. They had no idea about a lot of things. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Chelsea. Found something Lillian left for you. You're going to want to see this. I put the car in drive, leaving behind the cemetery and my cousin's cruel laughter. Aunt Lillian always said timing was everything, and something told me she had one last lesson to teach about patience, karma, and the true meaning of family legacy. As I merged onto the highway heading toward the shelter, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe being an outsider wasn't such a bad thing after all. Sometimes it gives you the perfect vantage point to see what others miss. The women's shelter stood in stark contrast to the mansions my cousins called home. A modest 3-story building with fading paint and a small garden out front. But unlike those cold marble halls, this place radiated warmth. As I walked through the front door, the familiar scent of coffee and fresh-baked cookies wrapped around me like a hug. There you are. Chelsea rushed forward, her gray curls bouncing. How was the funeral? About as pleasant as you'd expect, I said, hanging up my coat. My cousins made sure to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. Before Chelsea could respond, Maria, one of our regular volunteers, poked her head out of the kitchen. Is it true about Miss Lillian? She really passed away? I nodded, and Maria's eyes welled up with tears. But she was just here last week, helping me organize the donation closet. Chelsea shot me a knowing look. Most of the women here had no idea she was from money. She'd show up in her gardening clothes, insisting on being called just Lillian. That's because the real Lillian wasn't the society woman my cousins thought they knew, I said, following Chelsea to her office. Remember how she used to bring those incredible homemade cookies and tell everyone they were store-bought because she didn't want to seem like she was showing off? Chelsea laughed, then grew serious, which makes what I'm about to show you even more important. She unlocked her desk drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. She dropped this off last month, made me promise not to give it to you until after she was gone. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. Aunt Lillian's elegant handwriting spelled out my name on the front. She came to see me that day, Chelsea said softly, told me she'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer 6 months earlier, said she had some loose ends to tie up. I sank into the chair across from Chelsea's desk, the envelope heavy in my hands. She never told any of us she was sick. Open it, Chelsea urged. She was very specific about the timing. Just then, a commotion erupted in the hallway. 2 women were arguing, their voices rising. Chelsea sighed. I should handle this. Take your time with the letter. Alone in the office, I traced my finger over Aunt Lillian's handwriting, remembering the first time she'd caught me volunteering here 5 years ago. I thought I recognized that laugh, she'd said, standing in the doorway in old jeans and a faded sweater. Don't look so scared, dear. I'm not here to tell tales to the family. That day, she'd rolled up her sleeves and helped me sort donations for 3 hours. It became our secret Tuesday ritual. The black sheep and the family matriarch working side by side to help women rebuild their lives. Taking a deep breath, I broke the seal and unfolded the letter. My dearest Callie, if you're reading this, I've already passed. Don't waste time mourning. We both know I lived exactly as I chose to. What matters now is ensuring my legacy continues in the right hands. By now, my children and your cousins will be gathering for the reading of my official will. Let them. What they don't know is that 3 months ago, I made some significant changes to my estate planning. The shelter's building deed is enclosed with this letter. I purchased it last year when the previous owners threatened to sell. It's yours now, along with an endowment to ensure its continued operation. There's more, but that will become clear soon enough. You alone understood what I've known all along, that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives we touch. While the others were chasing status at country clubs, you were here helping women find their strength. Don't reveal anything yet. Let the official reading proceed. Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected moments. All my love, Aunt Lillian. P.S. Check the cookie jar in the kitchen. I left my secret recipe there last week. Those women deserve the real thing, not store-bought substitutes. My vision blurred with tears as I pulled out the property deed. Chelsea knocked softly before entering. You okay? She asked, closing the door behind her. I handed her the letter, watching her eyes widen as she read. Oh my God, she whispered. She bought the building. She knew the shelter was at risk, I said, wiping my eyes. All those times she was organizing the donation closet, she was actually planning this. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. Will reading tomorrow at 2. Not that it matters to you. Chelsea handed the letter back, squeezing my shoulder. What are you going to do? I tucked the letter and deed safely in my bag, thinking of Aunt Lillian's words about unexpected moments and lessons. First, I said standing up, I'm going to check that cookie jar. Then I'm going to do exactly what Aunt Lillian asked. Wait for the right moment to show them who she really was and what family really means. Back home in my small apartment, I spread Aunt Lillian's documents across my kitchen table. The property deed was just the beginning. Tucked inside the envelope, I found a USB drive, bank statements, and another sealed letter marked read after the will. My hands shook as I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. A single video file appeared, dated just 2 months ago. Aunt Lillian's face filled the screen, looking tired but determined. Hello, dear. Her voice rang clear through my speakers. If you're watching this, you've already found the deed. But there's more to tell you. I paused the video, needing a moment. Even through the screen, her presence felt so real it hurt. My phone buzzed again. Camilla this time. Hope you're not too disappointed about missing tomorrow's reading. Though, really, what did you expect? I hit play again. The lawyers will read a will tomorrow that my children and your cousins expect, Aunt Lillian continued. They'll squabble over the house, the cars, the jewelry, all the things they think matter. But my real will, the one that matters, was filed last month. She leaned closer to the camera, her eyes fierce. I've watched them all these years, Callie. Watched how they treated you, how they chased status while you built something meaningful. The shelter isn't just a building. It's hope for women who need it most, and you're the only one who truly understands that. A knock at my door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Quinn standing in the hallway, shifting nervously. I know you're home, she called out. Your car's outside. I closed my laptop and opened the door. Quinn, what are you doing here? She brushed past me into the apartment, her designer perfume overwhelming in my small space. I wanted to make sure you understood about tomorrow. It's not personal, isn't it? I gestured to my couch. Wanna sit? She perched on the edge looking uncomfortable. Derek and Camilla think it's better if you're not there. They're worried you might make a scene. When have I ever made a scene, Quinn? She had the grace to look embarrassed. Look, we all know Aunt Lillian was different in her last years. Started acting strange volunteering at that shelter. Derek thinks she wasn't thinking clearly. I thought of the sharp, determined woman in the video. She knew exactly what she was doing. Did she though? Quinn stood up pacing. She used to take us shopping, buy us whatever we wanted, then suddenly, she's wearing old clothes and hanging out in some charity shelter? That's not normal. Maybe she found something more meaningful than shopping. Quinn stopped pacing, her eyes landing on the papers spread across my table. What's all that? I quickly gathered them up. Just work stuff. Right. Your important shelter work. She headed for the door then paused. You know, Camilla's already talking about selling the shelter building, says the land's worth millions to developers. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral. Is that so? Just don't get your hopes up about anything, okay? It's better that way. She left, closing the door softly behind her. I returned to my laptop, hitting play on Aunt Lillian's video. I've left everything to you, Callie, she continued. The house, the investments, everything. But most importantly, I've left you my truth. Let them have their reading tomorrow. Let them show who they really are. Then when the time is right, show them who I really was. The video ended. I opened the final letter with trembling fingers. My dearest Callie, by now, they've shown their true colors at the reading. Remember, real strength isn't in attacking, but in standing firm in your truth. The official papers are with my lawyer, Sandra Mills. She'll contact you after tomorrow's charade. The shelter is yours, protected and endowed. The rest, well, let's just say your cousins are in for quite a surprise. Use it wisely, dear one. Show them what real family legacy looks like. All my love, Aunt Lillian. I folded the letter carefully, thinking of Quinn's words about selling the shelter, of Camilla's smugness, of Derek's certainty about who Aunt Lillian was. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from an unknown number. This is Sandra Mills. Meeting tomorrow after the reading? 4 p.m. at my office. Bring the letters and USB drive. I texted back a simple yes, then gathered all of Aunt Lillian's documents into a secure folder. Tomorrow, my cousins would gather to divide what they thought was their inheritance. They had no idea that Aunt Lillian had orchestrated the perfect lesson about karma, justice, and the true meaning of wealth. For now, though, I had a batch of cookies to bake. After all, I had her secret recipe, and the women at the shelter deserved something special. I sat in my car outside the law office watching my cousins arrive in their luxury vehicles. Through the large windows, I could see them gathering in the conference room, already arguing about something. Even from here, I could read Camilla's animated gestures. She was probably laying claim to Aunt Lillian's art collection. My phone lit up with a text from Chelsea. The vulture circling yet? You have no idea, I replied, then added a photo of Derek dramatically pounding the conference table. I wasn't supposed to be here, but I needed to see this play out. Parking around the corner had given me a perfect view of the show. The lawyer, Mr. Patterson, entered the room with a thin folder, the will they were expecting. My phone rang. Sandra Mills, are you watching? She asked without preamble. From my car. They're about to start. Good. Stay there. I want you to see their reactions when they realize that folder contains nothing but a letter. Inside, Mr. Patterson opened the folder. Even from here, I could see Camilla's face redden as he began to read. She shot up from her chair, snatching the paper from his hands. This is it? Her voice carried through the glass. One page? This can't be everything. Quinn pressed her hands to her face while Derek paced the room like a caged animal. I cracked my window to hear better. This is the only will we have on file, Mr. Patterson said calmly. It simply states that all matters regarding the estate will be handled by another attorney, Sandra Mills. Who the hell is Sandra Mills? Derek's voice boomed. I've never heard of her, Quinn whispered. Why would Aunt Lillian do this? Camilla pulled out her phone, probably Googling Sandra's name. This doesn't make sense. The house alone is worth millions. The art collection? The investments? Where is all of that? Perhaps, Mr. Patterson suggested, you should contact Miss Mills. I'm calling our family lawyer, Derek announced. This is ridiculous. We'll contest it. My phone buzzed again. Sandra. Time for phase 2. Meet me at my office now. I started my car just as Camilla stormed out of the building, mascara running down her cheeks. She was so focused on her phone, she didn't even notice me driving past. Sandra's office was across town in a modest building, nothing like the gleaming tower my cousins were leaving. She greeted me with a warm smile and ushered me into her office. "Right on schedule," she said, checking her watch. "They should be calling any." Her phone rang. She put it on speaker. "Sandra Mills speaking. This is Derek. What kind of game are you playing?" "Where's our aunt's real will?" "Mr. Hudson, I've been expecting your call. Would you like to schedule a meeting? We demand to know what's going on." Camilla's voice cut in. "We're her children." "Of course," Sandra replied smoothly. "I'm free at 4 p.m. today. Will you all be attending?" "We'll be there with our lawyer," Derek snapped. "Wonderful. Oh, and please be aware, your cousin, Callie, will be joining us." The line went silent for a moment before Quinn spoke. "Callie, what does she have to do with this?" "Everything will be explained at 4 p.m. See you then." She hung up, turning to me with a twinkle in her eye. "Your aunt was right about them. Now let's prepare. They'll try to paint you as a manipulator who took advantage of a confused old woman." "But we have the video," I reminded her, "and the letters, and the shelter's documentation, and 5 years of witnesses who saw her volunteer work." Sandra pulled out a thick folder. "Your aunt spent months preparing for this. She wanted to teach them a lesson." "Yes. But she also wanted to protect you." "I don't care about the money," I said quietly. "I just want to protect her legacy." "The money is part of her legacy," Sandra corrected me, "and she trusted you to use it wisely." My phone chimed with a group text from my cousins. "Derek, whatever you did to manipulate Aunt Lillian will expose you. Camilla, hope you're happy with yourself. This isn't over. Quinn, how could you do this to us?" Sandra read the messages over my shoulder and smiled. "They still think this is about them. Shall we show them what it's really about?" I thought of Aunt Lillian's video, her letters, her quiet work at the shelter. "Yes," I said, "it's time they met the real Aunt Lillian." We spent the next hour reviewing documents and preparing for the storm that was coming. At 3:55, Sandra's receptionist buzzed. "They're here, all three, plus their lawyer." I took a deep breath, touching the lock that Aunt Lillian had given me last Christmas. Inside was a tiny note that read, "Sometimes the greatest gift is showing people who they really are." "Ready?" Sandra asked, standing. I nodded, straightening my spine. "Let's finish what Aunt Lillian started." The conference room crackled with tension as my cousins filed in, their lawyer trailing behind them. Camilla's eyes narrowed when she saw me, while Derek made a show of adjusting his expensive cufflinks. Quinn wouldn't look at me at all. "Let's get straight to the point," their lawyer started, but Sandra held up her hand. "Before we begin, we have something you need to see." She set up a laptop on the conference table. "This video was recorded by Lillian 2 months ago." "Objection," their lawyer interrupted. "We have no way to verify." "The video is time-stamped and notarized," Sandra replied calmly, hitting play. Aunt Lillian's face appeared on screen, and Quinn gasped. She looked healthier here than in her final days, but the determination in her eyes was unmistakable. "My dear children," she began, "if you're watching this, you've already discovered that my will isn't what you expected. You're probably angry, confused, maybe even planning to contest it." Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "For years, I've watched you chase status and wealth, treating kindness as weakness and compassion as foolishness. You mocked your cousin, Callie, for working at a shelter, never knowing I worked alongside her every Tuesday." "That's ridiculous," Camilla scoffed. "Mom would never check my calendar," Aunt Lillian continued as if anticipating the interruption. "Every Tuesday for 5 years. Ask the women at the shelter. While you were at country club luncheons, I was serving soup and counseling abuse survivors." Quinn's face had gone pale. "The gardening clothes," she whispered. "You said she was going through a strange phase." "I've left everything to Callie," Aunt Lillian announced, "because she alone understood what real wealth is. The shelter, the house, the investments, all of it. Not out of spite, but because I trust her to use it wisely." "This is preposterous," their lawyer sputtered. Clearly, she was being manipulated. Sandra pulled out a thick folder. "I have 5 years of documented volunteer hours, witness statements, and medical evaluations proving Lillian was of sound mind when she made these decisions. She was our mother." Derek slammed his hand on the table. "Everything was supposed to go to us." "Play the rest," I said quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken. Aunt Lillian's voice filled the room again. "But I'm offering you one chance. Callie has instructions to set up a charitable foundation. If you choose to participate to truly understand the work we do, you can each have a role. The choice is yours. Continue fighting over money or help build something meaningful." The video ended. Silence filled the room. "This is your doing." Camilla pointed at me, mascara smearing again. "You turned her against us." "Did I?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through photos. Here's Aunt Lillian last Christmas, serving dinner at the shelter. Here she is helping a woman move into her first apartment after leaving her abuser. Here she is teaching a financial literacy class to survivors. Quinn grabbed the phone, swiping through pictures with trembling hands. Why didn't she tell us? Would you have listened? I asked gently. Or would you have done exactly what you're doing now? Assume someone manipulated her? The will is ironclad, Sandra added. You can contest it, but you'll lose. And you'll spend years in court while the Foundation's work continues without you. Derek stood up abruptly. This is absurd. Come on, we're leaving. But Quinn stayed seated, still staring at my phone. Wait, she said.